Okay, let's uncheck this. Foodborne illnesses. You probably think, maybe it's just a dodgy takeaway reaction, right? But here's where it gets really interesting. Even in places like the US or Europe with all the regulations, these things are incredibly common.
Yeah, it's quite surprising. Most cases, thankfully, are pretty mild, just an upset stomach for a day or two.
True, but then you look globally. In developing regions, for young kids or people with compromised immune system, like with HIV/AIDS, these same infections, they're a major cause of death.
That contrast is stark, isn't it? It really shows how fundamental food safety is and, well, how devastating the consequences can be when it fails.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we're going into let's say, the fascinating, sometimes a bit unsettling world of how food can, well, turn against us. And we're not just talking about, like, that questionable hot dog. We're looking at the whole microscopic picture: bacteria, viruses, toxins, the works.
Hmm.
So whether you're maybe studying public health or just wondering if that leftover pizza is safe, we're here to break it down. What does this actually mean for you?
Exactly. And understanding this isn't just about avoiding a bad stomach bug. It connects to, how our food gets to us, the biology of these tiny organisms, and global health efforts. Our sources today really give us a good look at this whole complex picture.
Right. We've got research looking at all the causes, not just infections, but toxins, other contaminants too. And we'll touch on treatments, prevention, the practical stuff, and the bigger public health angle. Ready to jump in?
Definitely. So first off, how do these things actually spread? I mean, you can get sick from someone preparing food if they're ill, but the really big routes are contaminated food itself, and maybe even more importantly, contaminated water.
Water, right. Like a single contaminated source affecting loads of people.
Precisely. One bad batch of something can cause a huge outbreak.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Uh,
Okay, so who are the main culprits, the usual suspects in this food poisoning drama?
well, we're looking at a whole range of microscopic things. Bacteria, viruses, parasites, protozoa, even fungi can play a role. And it's important to remember, some make you sick directly by, like, setting up shop in your gut. Others are more like tiny factories producing toxins that cause the problems.
Tiny biochemical factories. I like that. Okay, let's meet some of the bacteria. Give us the lowdown on the big names.
Okay, Salmonella, that's a classic, right? Found in poultry, eggs, meat, unpasteurized milk, or juice. Lots of places. It causes what people usually call food poisoning. Technically, it's often hyperacute gastroenteritis, basically really nasty inflammation.
Yeah, sounds unpleasant.
And the sneaky thing is, farm animals carrying Salmonella, they might look perfectly healthy.
Oh, really?
Yep. That's why keeping raw foods cold and cooking things like chicken thoroughly is so vital. And watch out for cross-contamination after cooking. You don't want raw chicken juice on your salad, for instance.
Good point. Those invisible bugs travel easily. Okay, who's next on the bacterial hit list?
How about Clostridium perfringens? This one's interesting because it forms spores. Think of them like little survival pods.
Spores.
Yeah, and these spores can actually survive normal cooking temperatures.
Wait, survive cooking. That's worrying.
It can be, and here's the kicker. If cooked food, especially things like meat dishes, stews, gravies,
Oh.
if it cools down too slowly, and there isn't much oxygen like in a big pot left out, that can actually trigger the spores to germinate and produce toxins.
So leaving the pot on the stove to cool is a bad idea.
Potentially, yes. It can lead to a couple of issues. There's a nasty one called necrotizing enteritis, but thankfully that's rare in industrialized countries. Mostly it's standard food poisoning symptoms. The key takeaway: eat those kinds of foods hot right after cooking, or cool them down fast and get them in the fridge. Don't give the spores that slow-cooling sweet spot.
Right, to deprive them of their ideal conditions. Okay, who else is in this bacterial lineup?
Then there's Listeria monocytogenes. This one's kind of an environmental type, found in soil, water, on plants. You can get into things like unpasteurized milk, soft cheeses, raw veggies, deli meats, undercooked meat, and it causes listeriosis.
Listeria. Okay, heard of that one, especially with recall sometimes. What about Staphylococcus? That's often linked to foods left out, right?
Exactly. Staph is fascinating because it's not the bacteria itself making you sick directly, it's the toxins it produces. And these toxins are heat resistant.
Heat resistant, so cooking doesn't help.
Not if the toxins already formed, no. Symptoms pop up really fast, maybe just 3 or 4 hours later. Creamy foods, milk-based dishes left at room temperature. That's like a 5-star resort. And for Staph, they multiply, pump out toxins. Even if you reheat the food later and kill the bacteria, the toxin's still there. Really highlights why refrigeration is key during food prep and storage.
Wow, so even if it looks and smells okay, dangerous toxins could be lurking. Good to know. Okay, and the big one, E. coli.
Ah, yes, Escherichia coli. Now, most E. coli in our gut are harmless, even helpful.
Oh,
There are definitely some bad actors. The problem strains usually spread through fecal contamination. Think contaminated meat, especially ground beef, unpasteurized milk, raw veggies washed with bad water.
ground beef. Why is that particularly risky?
Because during grinding, bacteria on the surface can get mixed deep inside. So if you don't cook a burger all the way through to a safe internal temperature, some E. coli might survive in the middle.
Makes sense.
And there's the infamous E. coli 0157.H7 strain. That one can cause really severe stuff like hemorrhagic colitis, basically, bloody diarrhea, and something called hemolytic uremic syndrome, HUS, which is serious kidney damage.
HUS sounds awful.
It is. And interestingly, for these specific EHE infections, that's enterohemorrhagic E. coli doctors usually avoid giving antibiotics.
Avoid antibiotics. For a bacterial infection, why?
Yeah, it sounds weird, right? But the thinking is that antibiotics might actually stress the bacteria, causing them to release more of their dangerous Shiga toxin, potentially increasing the risk of HUS.
Huh. So treatment is more about managing symptoms.
Exactly. Supportive care. We should also mention ETEC, or enterotoxigenic E. coli. That's a huge cause of traveler's diarrhea.
Ah, Montezuma's revenge.
Pretty much. It's common, but sometimes missed because standard lab tests might not distinguish it easily from the harmless E. coli. So recent travel plus tummy troubles, ETEC is a prime suspect.
Got it. Any other bacteria we should quickly mention?
Well, there's Shigella. A big concern there is growing antibiotic resistance. And Yersinia enterocolitica seem to like pork. And strangely, it can actually grow slowly even in the refrigerator.
Grow in the fridge. That's not good for ready-to-eat stuff.
Nope. And here's a weird fact. Yersinia food poisoning symptoms can sometimes mimic appendicitis.
Mimic appendicitis. Wow, these microbes keep things interesting. Okay, let's shift gears. Viruses. What viral nasties can we get from food?
Norovirus is king here. Super contagious. Causes gastroenteritis, what people often call stomach flu, though it's not related to influenza.
Right, the cruise ship virus.
That's the one. Spreads like wildfire. In close quarters, schools, restaurants, ships. Usually fecal oral route, but also from vomit particles, contaminated surfaces, food, water. Oysters, berries, leafy greens are common vehicles. Cold foods or things handled after cooking are often implicated because the virus is easily spread.
And heat kills it.
Yes, thorough cooking helps, but just mild pasteurization might not be enough to completely wipe it out. It's pretty tough.
Good to know. What else on the viral front?
Hepatitis A. Another food and waterborne one, think contaminated water, or raw or poorly cooked food, maybe veggies washed in dirty water. And hepatitis A is resilient. It can survive normal cooking temperatures sometimes.
Survive cooking, too, and has a long incubation.
Yeah, anywhere from like 15 to 50 days makes tracing outbreaks really tricky.
I can imagine. Okay, what about parasites and protozoa? Less common maybe, but still out there?
Definitely less common in places with good sanitation, but still significant globally. Entamoeba histolytica causes amoebiasis. We see it more in travelers or migrants from endemic areas. It causes diarrhea, sometimes bloody, and can potentially spread to the liver, which is serious.
Yikes.
Then cryptosporidium, often linked to water swimming pools, lakes, usually has a longer incubation, maybe a week or so.
Ah, crypto. Heard of pool closures because of that.
Exactly. And Cyclospora chiatenensis. This one's often associated with imported fresh produce like berries or herbs. It can cause pretty persistent diarrhea, especially in people with weakened immune systems.
So watch the fresh stuff, especially when traveling. Now, fungi. Besides moldy bread, can fungi cause immediate problems?
They can. Some mushrooms are toxic, obviously. Like Entoloma lividum causes bad gastrointestinal upset. And then you have ones like Amanita muscaria, the classic red toadstool, which contain toxins causing dizziness, even hallucinations. That's Pannernicka syndrome.
Hallucinations from mushrooms. Okay.
And historically, there was ergotism from a fungus, Clavacips purpurea, growing on rye grain, caused neurological problems, even gangrene. Pretty awful.
Wow. History of food safety is dark. And then there are mycotoxins. That sounds bad.
They are potentially harmful compounds produced by molds. Think aflatoxins, ochratoxins, patulin, found on cereals, nuts, dried fruit if they get moldy. Long-term exposure, even low levels, might affect the immune system, development, and increase cancer risk. Aflatoxin B1 is a known liver carcinogen.
Liver cancer from moldy nuts.
It's a known risk factor, yes.
Yeah.
And if cows eat contaminated feed, aflatoxins can end up in their milk. Patulin is common in rotting apples.
So just cutting off the moldy bit might not be enough. The toxins could be deeper in.
That's the concern, yeah. Okay, so we've covered the living invaders. What about non-infectious food poisoning?
Right, things that aren't bugs multiplying.
Exactly. Like botulism, caused by a potent neurotoxin from Clostridium botulinum, usually from improperly canned foods. Thankfully, there's an antitoxin, but you need it fast to stop the paralysis progressing.
Scary stuff. What else?
Scumbroid poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
This happens with fish like tuna or mackerel if they aren't chilled properly after catching. Histamine builds up in the fish flesh. It causes symptoms that look like an allergy rash, GI issues, but it's actually the histamine. Antihistamines can help.
Interesting. Not an allergy, but treated like one.
Sort of, yeah. And then seguider poisoning, from toxins in certain reef fish that eat toxic algae. No specific antidote, just supportive care.
Man, so many ways food can go wrong. Okay, moving beyond germs and toxins.
Yeah.
What about allergies?
Huge topic. Food allergies are an immune system reaction to food proteins. Milk, eggs, soy, wheat, shellfish, nuts, some fruits. Common triggers. Reactions vary wildly from mild hives to life-threatening anaphylaxis.
And cooking helps sometimes.
Sometimes it can break down the allergenic protein, yeah, but
Right.
not always. Even inhaling cooking fumes like fish can trigger reactions in some people. And there's a parasite in fish, Anisakis simplex. Even if it's dead, it can cause allergic reactions.
A parasite allergy. Wow.
Yeah. And remember, scombroid isn't a true fish allergy. Peanut allergies, as we know, can be especially severe.
Definitely. And allergies are different from intolerances, right?
Absolutely. Intolerances aren't immune reactions. They're usually about digestion lacking an enzyme. Lactose intolerance is the classic example.
Yeah.
Not enough lactase enzyme to break down milk sugar. Symptoms are usually digestive gas, bloating, diarrhea. Doesn't involve the immune system like allergies do.
Okay, immune versus digestive. Got it. Now, what about additives? All the stuff put in our food. Can that cause problems?
For some people, yes. Sulfites, preservatives in wine, dried fruit jams can trigger reactions from rashes to severe asthma or even anaphylaxis in sensitive individuals.
Sulfites, okay.
Salicylates, found naturally in berries and nuts but also added sometimes, can cause issues too. MSG monosodium glutamate, the flavor enhancer. Linked to various reactions in some, though it's debated. Nitrates and nitrites in cured meats can be toxic in high amounts and potentially form carcinogens. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, ongoing debate about their long-term effects.
And
Food colorings, natural or synthetic, can cause hypersensitivity, allergies, asthma in some. There are concerns about some synthetic dyes too. It's complex, and individual sensitivity varies hugely.
seems like a minefield for sensitive people. Okay, last category, contaminants. Things not supposed to be there at all.
Right. Pesticides and heavy metals are a big concern. Potential long-term effects like cancer, genetic damage, developmental issues, heavy metals, mercury in fish, cadmium from contaminated soil and rice, lead they build up in the body and can cause neurological problems, kidney damage, cancer.
And residues from drugs given to animals.
Veterinary drug residues in meat or milk, yeah, that's another concern. Also, long-term low-level pesticide exposure is linked to various health problems.
And things created during cooking?
Yes. Unintentionally produced contaminants, like acrylamide, formed when starchy foods are fried or baked at high temps. It's shown genotoxic effects in lab studies. Or PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, like benzomethpyrene formed during roasting, like coffee or cocoa or grilling meat. Some PAHs are carcinogenic.
So how we cook matters too, not just what we cook.
Okay, quick detour. I read something about zinc and diarrhea.
Yeah, that's particularly relevant in developing countries. Zinc deficiency can make diarrhea worse and last longer, especially in young children. Studies show that giving zinc supplements during a diarrheal episode, particularly for kids over 6 months, can actually shorten it and make it less severe. A small but significant benefit.
Good to know. Zinc plays a role there. Okay, so when we do get sick, are there any quick fixes we should be careful with, like anti-diarrhea meds?
That's a really important point. Those anti-motility drugs, the ones that stop diarrhea, can be okay for mild traveler's diarrhea, maybe with antibiotics. UT. They can be dangerous in severe cases. If you have really high-volume, watery diarrhea like cholera or inflammatory colitis like with C. diff or some E. coli, stopping the bowel can lead to serious complications.
Like what?
Things like toxic megacolon, where the colon gets dangerously dilated, or even worsening HUS. There have been rare fatal outcomes linked to using them in infections like Campylobacter, so caution is needed. Wow, okay. So don't just automatically reach for the Imodium if it's really bad. What about anti-cramping meds?
Antispasmodics can help cramps, but they have side effects. Antihistamines sometimes get used for nausea, but they're mainly for motion sickness and aren't great for gastroenteritis nausea. Plus, they make you drowsy.
Right. So quick fixes aren't always the best idea. We usually think food poisoning is just a short-term misery, but are there longer-term consequences?
Unfortunately, yes, sometimes. We mostly recover fine, but studies following large outbreaks show increased risks later on. Things like developing post-infectious irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. Also, after HUS, there's a higher risk of chronic kidney disease and hypertension.
IBS from food poisoning.
Yeah, it's a known link. And Guillain-Barré syndrome, a serious neurological condition, is strongly linked to preceding Campylobacter infections. There's also evidence suggesting acute infectious gastroenteritis might increase the risk of developing inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis and reactive arthritis down the line.
Man, those are serious potential long-term issues. Really drives home why prevention is so important. So let's talk practical tips. What can you, the listener, do every day?
It really boils down to good habits. First, wash your hands thoroughly with soap, especially after touching raw meat, poultry, eggs, and always before eating or preparing food.
Hand washing, number one. What else?
Avoid cross-contamination. Use separate cutting boards, plates, utensils for raw and cooked foods. Keep raw meat juices away from everything else. Clean surfaces well.
Separate boards, got it.
Cook foods to the correct internal temperature. Use a food thermometer. It's the only reliable way. There are specific safe temperatures for different meats, poultry, eggs.
Invest in a thermometer.
Yeah. Chill perishable foods promptly within 2 hours or 1 hour if it's hot out. Don't let things sit on the counter. Thaw food safely in the fridge, cold water, or microwave, not on the counter.
Fridge thawing is best, right?
Generally, yes. Also, inspect canned goods. Don't buy dented, bulging, or rusty cans. Wash fresh fruits and veggies well under running water.
Even if you peel them.
Yep, bacteria on the outside can transfer when you cut. Be careful with raw eggs. Avoid cracked ones. Cook egg dishes thoroughly. Reheat leftovers, especially microwaved ones, to 165 degrees FO, 74 degrees C throughout.
And the golden rule.
When in doubt, throw it out. Don't taste food that looks or smells off. It's not worth the risk.
Simple rules, big impact. Okay, last thing. Government inspections. They're meant to keep us safe, right? How well do they work?
Food safety inspections are definitely a key part of the system,
Okay.
but there are always debates about how consistent or effective they really are. What does an inspection grade really mean? Consumers might see it differently than the restaurant owner or the inspector. Is it assurance or just a snapshot in time?
Yeah, good question.
Some places are moving towards more transparency, like posting inspection results online or with letter grades. That can help empower consumers, theoretically.
Transparency helps. Okay, so
Yeah.
wrapping up this pretty expensive deep dive, what's the main thing you want people to take away?
I think the key message is just how complex food safety really is. It's not just one thing. It's bacteria, viruses, toxins, chemicals, allergens, a whole spectrum of risks. So understanding those risks, even just basically, and then consistently practicing those good food handling habits we talked about, that's crucial for protecting yourself and your family.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to chew on. Despite all our modern science and regulations, foodborne illness is still a massive global health issue. And new challenges keep popping up, like antibiotic resistance spreading through the food chain, or how climate change might affect things like algal blooms, contaminating seafood, or crop contamination.
Emerging threats.
So it makes you think, doesn't it? What's the right balance of responsibility? How much falls on us as individuals in our own kitchens? How much on the food industry? And how much on governments setting the rules? How do we all work together to make sure our food supply is as safe as possible for everyone?
Yeah, that's the big question. And we've really only skimmed the surface today. Maybe you're now curious about the safety of specific foods you eat often, or about how regulations work where you live. We definitely encourage you to look into it more. Check out local health department resources. Read up on safe food handling. The more you know, the better you can navigate these risks.